Okay, let's look at what we can do then. What have we been doing in the working group? What have we got to talk about? So let's have a few questions to begin with, at least one. Folks have seen CRA? Yes? Who's read it? I'll be honest. Right, all of it, not just the bits that you were interested in, is the yeah, okay. All right, so it's big. Now then, if we read the question, do cyber regulations present a significant change in the design requirements and methods for product creators? It's a bit of a broad question. Who thinks no? Okay, we'll chat with Michael and explain that later. Who thinks it may have an impact on what we do? Okay, who hasn't digested CRA and understood it? Right, okay. Let's look into this then. So the answer is yes. Okay, it was a leading question if you hadn't worked that bit out. Okay. Ultimately, yes, there is lots and lots of things that are going to change for good, arguably, but they're going to be a painful journey and they're going to affect different people in different ways, and that's part of the challenge that we're going to face. If you look at some of the headline parts of it, then yes, we're going to have increased planning. We're actually going to plan what we create now and design it properly. That's different for some companies. You've got to look at the whole cyber impact, not just on, well, does it get through that security bit? It's now the impact over its lifetime. And that lifetime is now extended because I've got to put long-term support in place. So that's an impact on the business. The business has to support that. And back to some of the discussion this morning, to do that, well, the business ultimately has to make money to be able to support that through its product life cycle. So there's a difference in now how that product funding goes on and how the developers and the people who actually create the product and maintain it over its life cycle achieve that. So there's lots of things that start to cause a challenge. You've got to ensure that during hopefully you're doing a continuous integration process as you're doing some level of product output updates. We've got to ensure that the product is tested each time. It's got to be this continuous compliance approach now. Everything's got to be up to date and it's got to be continuously compliant throughout the lifetime of the product, which is a challenge because it's not something we've done necessarily historically, even with cyber products. Safety differently, but that's a different discussion for a short while. Documentation changes because it's now basically on the hook. It's got to be public. Things have got to be in place. The regulators want to see it. There's all this changes. It's not what we've historically done. And to get us there, it's legislation. So there's penalties involved. There's liability involved for not meeting the compliance requirements. So it's a big difference in how we do a product. So in reality, if we actually stand back and think about it, it requires a bit of a phased shift in how we think about and approach product development to what maybe we've historically done and got away with, okay? Because the landscape is changing. So what is that landscape? It's a big globe, and we live somewhere in there, and we did our little bit. So, there's the UK. We did our little bit a little while ago with PSTI, and it made a bit of made no impact really in reality if we're brutally honest about it. Now, the CRA is coming. That's the next big thing. But if we look at it from a global perspective, okay, and this is a lovely map that one of the members puts out there on their website, so please do visit this. It's a great resource. Those requirements are going to be global. How many people make a global product? We don't make one for just the UK market. Some may, but not many. People try and make a global product. We live in a big world. And the requirements are going to be subtly different worldwide. So how do we address that? Developers can't easily develop to meet the requirements of every single jurisdiction individually because it's too hard to do that. So how can we address that? How can we make that life easier? And that's something, again, that we've got to look at how do we resolve that challenge for. So what's in these requirements? So phenomenally similar to a diagram that you may have seen historically. And I've added a few bits and changed a few words here and there. But ultimately, the bits in the middle are kind of the light blue are the direct product requirements. So they're the things that directly affect the device itself or whatever we're creating. And then the bits around it are all the bits that when you've actually read CRA and digested it, you go, ooh, there's a lot to do, isn't there? Okay, and these are the bits that affect the business and the processes and how you actually bring that product to market and manage it over its lifetime. And they're quite significant when you look at what's being asked for and the impact that's going to have on the developers. So I'm looking at this very much from a developer perspective, because that's where I spend my life talking to people, is with the development teams. And so for those, it's a bigger challenge, because the impact on them to be able to manage current product and develop the next product is quite difficult. Okay, things are going to be subtly different to maybe how things have happened. And there's a lot in there that, again, comes in. As was pointed out that Darren was discussing, the whole thing of an SBOM. Well, what is it? How do I get it? What comes from? Where does the code come from? The discussions this morning talked a little bit about it, which is interesting, which means I'm not a million miles off what really smart people think about, which is good. Things about code provenance. Where does it come from? What's in it? AI is going to be great, with a cautionary note. Does it do everything I want to do? Could it be fooled? Could I be sucked into believing it's going to deliver me great code, but I haven't really ever read it and checked it and tested it properly, and then wham, I do an update and suddenly I've got a backdoor in there. And all those things have to be considered, because I can't allow for that, because I've now got to make sure I'm compliant with what the regulations require. And I've got issues if I don't. So there's all these little things that are going to kick in and come down that ultimately come down to, this is difficult. How do I make a product? So business impact side, then there's lots of things that might need to look at changing. And I think one of the most critical bits is going to be what's in here. Okay, it's a mindset change. This is different to what we've done before. This is different to how products have gone out the door historically, and it's going to take the leadership in the company to really drive that and make the culture in place. And if you start looking at some of the cyber regs, and certainly the ones that are based around the automotive side of it, one of the drivers is it's a culture that they're trying to drive inside the companies, okay? A cyber culture, that you think about security through the whole life cycle of that product, okay? That life cycle includes now actions and changes that have to be done. You've got to audit all of these. You've got to know that they're there, because ultimately the regulators want to come and check on this. And one of the biggest updates, the biggest issues, I said, is this whole thing about updates. If I've now got to provide a product for, let's say, 5 years, and it's on the market, and I've got to provide 5 years after that, that's something we haven't done before. So a 10-year software update cycle, yeah, while I'm still bringing new products out, I'm trying to keep the company going and keep making money, okay? That's quite an ask. So it does require for the developers to change, okay? They're going to have to embrace secure by design, okay? Which folks are doing slowly, but in the main, it's folks who get it and have already gone to that. If we look at the broad landscape of developers and companies that have not yet, understood that this cyber requirement's coming, okay? And what do? So there's lots of companies out there that are going to need help with this challenge. There's things within it that the developers have to do, so they've got to look at this whole thing of threat modeling, SBOMs. How do they link in together? Because they are intrinsically linked, okay? Having their vulnerability process in. And the vulnerability process isn't the ability for somebody to go to the website and report a vulnerability. It's the bit behind it that solves the vulnerability and washes through the development cycle. That's the really big challenge. And then how do I create those patches and make sure that they solve the problem, and how do I deploy them, which means I have to have a deployment method and I have to have a means to get them there safely and sign them. All those things about the ecosystem kick in. So the product itself has changed quite significantly. Now, one of the big ones, which is quite interesting, is this one that comes in. Release to market with no known vulnerabilities. Okay. The folks have talked about this. The answer was good luck on that one. Okay. So even if it's aspirational, but the point is, could it be done? Well, possibly. Now, does it mean that maybe software engineers have to think about where their code comes from and code provenance? Yeah, maybe. Maybe they have to look at it and understand it. Maybe they have to test it. Okay? And the hardware engineers are no different, because they've got different things to do on their product. They've got to look at different ways in which their side of the bargain is kept up. Okay, this is not an individual aspect of it. And it doesn't go away because the IT guys have got it. Okay, this is now a system. It's a big ecosystem of things that have to go together. So it's not one small thing anymore. Monitoring of that compliance, again, lots got to be done. How do we deal with that? Lots of work to do in those scores. Okay, so how do we deal with all of those aspects? Right, so lots to do. So how can the IoTSF help? What can we do? Okay. So as of today, we've had this for a while. Okay, we've had the assurance framework. That's been in progress for a long time. It's been a huge amount of work. If you actually look into it and you've read it all and you understand it, there's a lot of work that went into the background, and I'm quite happy to have taken this on, but also I do scratch my head as to quite why I volunteered when John asked. But hey, I'll take it. It's good. So we have two aspects to that. We have the document, as we said, that gets downloaded a lot, and then the key bit behind it is the members-only document, which is the Excel spreadsheet, which is the bit where a lot of the extra work goes in about how do I actually look to create that product, how do I do the risk analysis, how do I have a mechanism to eke those questions out. And so we've had that for a while, and that's quite useful. But does that get us to where we need to be for what developers have now got to do, the challenge that they now face? So what can we do beyond that? And part of this is when we started to look at it, is this aspect of security never stops. Okay, the part now has to be compliant through its lifetime. Security can't stop. And even after its technical manufacturing end of life, it's got a life cycle that's defined. So that's quite tough. How do we help deal with that one? And if we consider security, this idea from the safety world of having things that are in and out of spec, and they're very clearly defined in the product. You can use the product to do this, and if you don't do it and it operates in this way, then it's out of spec and it's out of scope. Well, part of the mindset in security is to make the part work out of scope so that I can attack it because I don't want it to work in scope. I'm trying to find the vulnerability. So it's kind of a different viewpoint now about how to maybe look at that. So we have to look at how do we do updates, how do those vulnerabilities come in, and how do we manage all of that, because most of those things are going to occur after you've certified it. Because I'm going to go to certification, and certification isn't a one-time deal with cyber. I can't go, brilliant, I've certified at the lab today, because tomorrow the vulnerability is found on the product, and I have to fix it. Okay, so it's a continuous process. So that's a different system than we'd be used to. All right, so they're going to keep changing. We've got to manage that over the lifetime. We've got this continuous assurance, and this continuous assurance sort of mindset is what we've been trying to work to what we do with the framework and how we look at it and make it fit for purpose moving forward. But ultimately, it's this thing of products are going to be more complex to design. How do we help people do that? And that's kind of the goal of what the framework is about and what the foundation is about. We've got to keep people making products to keep the industry going, to keep the requirements there. So, the big reveal, okay? Drum roll. This is the bit John's waiting for. I can see him smiling. He knows what's coming. So, as of today, we're going to announce this. So, this is today's big reveal, okay? What we've done over the last 6 months or so, been working hard in the background to do this, is to move from PDF to the new world, this digital world with web pages, okay? It's very, very exciting. Isn't it amazing? Now, some of us like PDFs, I know that. I like PDFs, but they get a bit thick and they're getting heavy on the desk. So I'm morphing to web pages and digital. I'm getting there. And given the fact I've put this together, I guess I best really use it. So this is what we're trying to move to, and this is the very foundation of what we're trying to look at. So we've created, at the first instance, okay, we've created basically the document and all of the referencing to what is currently the assurance framework and put it into a digital format, okay? So I'll give you a quick tour because I don't have a PC to drive around. So we've gone with quick screenshots. What's behind it? All right, so trying to make it look very similar to what it is already. We don't want to frighten people too much by going too technical and going away from paper, right? So we've gone easy. We've made it look the same. It's about the catalyst to be able to let us do other things. So ultimately, what's behind there is the same information. So it's just a standard website to give us access to all the information we'd currently get in the document. All the relevant information is in there. But right now, because it's now on a web form, it means it's machine readable so people can go there and access it in different ways. Okay, it gives us a new way of looking at how things move forward. We can go in and access all the business processes. We can go in and look at everything as we can today, as it would do if I picked up the PDF. But when we get deeper in, we get to this nice point where we can add things. Okay, so now we've got this wonderful acres of space inside a web page which we can do things with. We can add extra content. And part of the goal in mind is how do we help developers create products more easily? Okay, if I read the regulation, it says the legal words which are undigestible. I read the standard, and it says, do this, but nobody tells you how to do things. How does a developer actually implement something? What do they need to do? How do I create my product to meet the requirement? Okay, such that it's repeatable, such that we follow good standards and best practices. How do we do that? So that's part of the white space in that gap there that hopefully over time will start to be filled as we create the material for that. But we're on first pass. We've created the harness and the framework to do things behind. And then crucially for those people who like PDFs, okay, we've given you a button at the end so you can have a PDF again, okay, so you can print it out. It's a bit longer than the original one because it's not formatted the same. It's an auto format that comes off the website, but it will give you paper, okay, and that's where we're at today. So that's what we've created. That's what's gone out today. That's live. Well, it's actually been live a week or two. We just haven't put the address out, but we didn't tell anybody. But that's what we've done so far. That's the bit that we are aiming to do. So what does that do for us? So first phase done, okay, which is take physical, make digital. That's been the challenge, putting the frameworks behind it, making sure that we have mechanisms there to do updates and add to this process. And how do we deal with that? That's the first bit. Very minimal changes to what's there. We've taken what's in the PDF and we've published it, okay? But in doing so, we've discovered lots of bits in the PDF that we need to modify and change, and some of the framework name words need to tweak, and there's little bits we've found, which is things that are in process. And that's part of phase 2 onwards. So what the working group have been looking at for the last 2 or 3, well, more than that, 3 sessions certainly, is looking at the requirements themselves and reading them again in a new light, making sure that do they make sense? Are they fit for purpose? Do we need to modify them slightly? Okay, and that's in progress, and it's ongoing because we're partway through, and we've got more to do. And then we've got new material that can be added. That's what we want to look at next. Okay, but we need help for that. We're going to need the membership to come and help with that one. What sort of things can we add in? Well, obviously we've got the purple document, and then we've got all the other best practice guides that we can add in there. So we can start adding those in. They're an easy win, right? Just bring all the information into one location. That's an easy win. What after that? Well, I'm trying to help people make products easier. How do I do that? So what else could we do that help companies create products? Well, there's a couple of ideas that are in play, and many, many more that we've got. It's just how do we implement them? Okay. So these are things that maybe we're looking to do. But it's an open forum. We can suggest things and we can look at how do we implement them and what impact do they do, how do they help people create, what does it do to move us forward and help this whole process go on to continue. And the intention, again, go back to the earlier document, is I'm making for a global standard. How do I abstract what the framework provides above all of those standards with what developers need to do so they can create products, and we can map across, and part of what we're looking to do is to create these mappings here, such that you can then cross-map what the framework says to standards, so I can develop and I can meet a standard by going across and knowing that I've done all the things that mean check, 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 check. We can do that. Okay, that's the ultimate goal. It's a lofty ambition, and it may work. Okay, but we need some help from people to do that, to help us understand different requirements in different locations. So that's where we're heading, hopefully. Okay, it's the beginning of a new era, if you like. Now, to get where we've got, I'm going to thank a few people. Okay, so the steering committee for the steering team, if you like, for the framework. So John, Nick, Trevor, and Richard, who are around, I think, somewhere, because they keep me on track and stop my brain disappearing in many directions at once, and keep it all calm. And then, to be honest, we couldn't do much of this without Nick and his team at Inquiring Minds. And I'm going to give special mention to Jonnet, because without him, we wouldn't have any code. Is he here? Yay! Thank you, Jonnet. Well done. Because that's where it all came from. Is Jonnet taking our sketchy bits of paper and ideas and actually creating a website from it for us, and the tools behind it to help us achieve what we need to achieve, which is the critical bit. So, call to action. We've got ideas, we've got things we want to do, we've got things that are going to be needed to help the community of engineers and the community of product creators actually create product, and businesses to actually prosper. To do that, we've got great people in this organisation, but we do need to help you, or get you to come along and help the working group and take on some of those actions and come up with the ideas and pass those across and do some of the things that we need to do to check documents and make sure they're fit for purpose. Equally, we're also pulling in from other working groups. So there is work that happens in other groups that we'll pull in because that's done in different forums. So we do need that stakeholder input if we're going to deliver tools that help people grow and help people work. So that's really important for us. And the other point on the back of that one is that most of us here probably understand that we need to do security, which is why we're here. Okay, but there may be people, because it is being recorded and put out as a broadcast and for later use. If you're not a member, then if you're seeing that you're going to struggle to meet cyber regulations, if you're going to need help and understanding to actually navigate this landscape and create products, because it is going to be more difficult. Okay, there isn't enough expertise in the world to deal with the challenge that we've got. Okay, so you're going to have to start sharing and understanding. If you need somewhere to go to gain that knowledge, then this is a good place to start. Okay, so you can actually meet people, talk with folks, ask questions, feed off people who've done it before, and understand that. So come and join in, come and join the party, as it were, and see where we take us. And thank you.